Hello, BCCO. Welcome to February. Happy Valentine's Day. That's right. Thank you, everyone. Okay. We'll save announcements for after the break because we still have folk coming in and temperature checks. But it's great to have you all. Please remember to spread out your ass. And Paul is absent tonight. We hope to have him back in 2 weeks. And we're back in here together on the 28th. And meanwhile, let's welcome Ming into the start of our spring semester.
Hello, everybody! So it feels like it's been forever since we had rehearsal, but welcome to the beginning of our so-called spring semester. It was great a couple of days ago, and then suddenly it became really cold. So I'm really glad we're here, but we are still figuring out exactly what the semester is going to look like. But in the meantime, we are going to be focusing on the Zemlinsky Psalm number 13. Now, the original program before COVID was the Mendelssohn, the Erste Walpurgisnacht, plus the Brahms, and then, of course, the Zemlinsky as one concert set. We, as the repertoire committee, came up with 4 concerts that spanned the whole entirety of choral repertoire out there, from new works, commissioned works, to works like the Mendelssohn that are hundreds of years old. But obviously, the pandemic had a lot to mess with us. So what we're going to be doing is looking at this phenomenal work with Zemlinsky. And our goal is to be able to perform this with orchestra, and it's a hefty work, and some other works too. It's a fantastic, fantastic work. What we're going to do is we're going to start with the warm-up first, and then I'm going to dive into the repertoire, talk about Zemlinsky, talk about the piece, and then of course we're going to rehearse too. We're going to be keeping the Schicksalslied and the Erste Walpurgisnacht as part of our repertoire, and we're hoping to perform that with orchestra as well. But we do know that this is a great work, and we have spent a bit of time with the Mendelssohn and the Brahms. And so to start the semester, we're going to look at a new repertoire and dive into a work that I don't think anybody's performed. Has anybody performed this piece before? Ever? Yes, there is a recording of it, so somebody has performed this one. Okay, let's stand up first. Let's do a warm-up. Okay, so it is colder outside after being warmer. We got tempted by the wind heat, so we need to warm up our bodies. Let's bounce up and down on our toes a little bit. And I want you to, just while you're doing that, twist a little bit so your arms are nice and loose and free. Bend your knees a little bit. Now remember, you see, I'm actually bending my knees back and forth, and my height is not changing. So, your legs can be straight and locked, so we call, and they can be kind of buoyant. We know that if you lock your knees, it cuts off blood supply. So you want to make sure your knees are kind of buoyant, and that your weight is on the toes of your feet, not the heels of your feet. If you go back on the heels of your feet, you could have collapsed and your hip goes in the wrong area. You want to be on the toes of your feet, and feet shoulder width apart, not further. It took me a while to really learn what this is, because you have to think, you can't really see your shoulders, but you have to visualize them and really make sure that you have a good foundation. Now your foundation from the waist down doesn't really change that much, except that it's that buoyant state. But above that, twist at the waist, and think about feeling, just like in yoga when they say, feel your second left toe. And you're like, I never think about that toe. During the day, we don't really think about our intercostals or intracostals, about these ribs, we think about other things. And so you want to get in touch with your muscles that we use to change breathing from an involuntary action to a voluntary action. So we want to make sure that we can control with specificity the muscles that we use to breathe. So let's do this. We're going to take a breath in for 2 counts and then breathe out for 2 counts. And then as always, we're going to breathe in by going down and out, and then breathe out by going in and then up. So you maintain your posture, but that you make sure that you have awareness of every muscle at what stage when you breathe in. Okay, we breathe in, 1, 2, and out. 1, 2, breathe in. 1, 2, breathe out. Now remember to keep your sternum lifted and your posture there. This all has to do with your viscera, maybe the floating ribs in the back of your neck. Now let's change this to 1 beat in, 3 out. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Okay? And breathe. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, as we know, when you speak, you tend to breathe in slow and then exhale quickly. And singing exactly the opposite. We breathe in quickly and then sustain all the way through engagement. So let's expand or extend, I should say, extend that support. 1 breath in and then 7 out. 1 breath in, 11 out. 1 breath in, 11 plus 4, 15 out. Right. And 1 breath in, and 7 out. 2, 3 on, 5, 6, 7, 1 breath in, 11 out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Keep it going. Breathe. 15 out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, not that at all. Now remember, you don't want to trap the air with your lips. You want to control the air exhalation through your vocal mechanism in your throat. So you're not going, but you're going, so it's a controlled exhalation, okay? One more time, 7, 11, 15, okay? So breathe in together, 7 out on shh. Breathe in together, 7 out, 11 out on shh. Breathe in together on 1 count, 15 out on shh, right? Here we go, and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So, when we're used to these exercises in college and grad school and all that kind of stuff, my abs would actually feel like they're really getting worked out. You should feel like you're starting to, do the core exercise workout to really engage your abs. Okay? So these muscles there, again, are typically involuntary. We use them for breathing all the time. But now we are specifically engaging them. So they should feel like they're being worked out. Let's do the constant exercise, which is going to engage them not only in sustained long notes, but with diaphragmatic kicks. Wait, sorry. Okay? So really engage the muscles, buoyant and strong. 2 and. Not bad. That was really excellent. It was so good, except for the very end. Going. Okay. Let's see if we can get a separation, especially for the last two. Okay. 2 and. Not bad, not bad, really not bad. So, the warm-up is always in 4 stages. It's to warm up your body, literally actually warm up your instrument. Horn players, woodwind players do this all the time. They just kind of breathe through their instrument, they go, and they actually warm up the instrument so it's not just cold, it actually affects the pitch. We do that, we warm up our body. Then what we do is we get on the breath. We want to feel these muscles engage. The last 2 portions are to create the space for singing, and then the 4th portion is like a laser. How do we focus on our vowels? So let's create the space first, and then we'll focus on vowels. So the way we create space is to, first of all, engage our yawn reflexes, lift the soft palate, and let's do a sigh on oo. Oh, that's excellent. That's really great. It looks like you've been waiting a lot of weeks to do that. You can do that on your own too. Okay, so think about that. Same thing. This is a muscle that we can engage, the soft palate, and we want to get it out of the way. It really is something that dampens the sound that we create. So, let's do this again, but I want you to drop your jaw and really physically stretch your mouth cavity so it has a lot of space. Remember, the jaw doesn't go up and down, it goes down and back. So as a hinge, open it up, and then sigh again, and. Oh, fantastic. Now, let's start phoning a little bit. On hums. So pretend you ate a great boy-chick bagel and go, And the person next to you also has a boy-chick bagel, and they say, this is a really good bagel. And you respond back to them and say, yes. So middle range, high range, and low range. Let's do Now, the reason why we chew with the jaw is because the jaw is a muscle, obviously, mandible, and it has muscles that attach it to our skull. And as a result, they tend to be tight. And so the exercise to chew while you hum is to make sure that you don't lock your jaw. So we do things like bagel chewing or whatever, but regardless, try to make your jaw very loose and chew a little bit. Let's do, again, back to the end. Let's do it opposite. Okay. Now, when we speak, this is the middle of our range, this is the upper range, this is the lower range. When we speak, we're always here. And we have all this amazing range that we use to sing. So let's do that. Go. And. That's great. Now, let's start to open up a little bit. Through our masks, and we're going to go. Mi, me, ma, mo, mu, and up. not bad. I modulated in the middle of one of your exercises, but that's okay. Mi, me, ma, mo, mu. I want you to feel like you put the consonant before the note that you're going to sing, and the vowel starts where your note is. So not mi, me, ma, mo, mu, which is late, but mi, me, ma, mo, mu. But it's down here. Ready? Here we go. And up. Mi, me, ma, mo, mu. I'm going to run to the restroom really quickly first, but get you situated, and we're going to take a look. You all have photocopies of it? Is that correct? You all have photocopies of it. Okay. I'm going to run to the restroom very quickly, and then we'll get started.
And I'll do announcements now. Why not? So once again, welcome. A reminder to read your chorus notes when they come, Monday mornings. I will repeat a few things that are in there. One is next week, we will not be here. Next week will be entirely virtual, back to Zoom and some Jack Trip, because the church is closed for the holiday. We will be rehearsing here on the 28th, and then hopefully here the whole time for the rest of the spring. If you haven't registered yet, we have some members who haven't yet. Please try to do that in the next week. We'll probably send out a reminder in the next few days. And we are waiting for some real scores. Who have Xeroxes? They're of the same edition that we will be getting from the publisher. It's an exclusive publisher. They have offices in New York and physical distribution in Europe. And the two don't communicate very well plus it's COVID time. So it's been really painful. We'll get them eventually. In the meantime, I hope you can make do with the Xeroxes that we have. What other announcements do I have? I think that's about it. Good timing. Thank you.
Okay. So, as surmised by people's lack of hand raising if anybody has performed the Psalm 13. Zemlinsky, of course, is not one of the most performed composers around. Zemlinsky is a phenomenal composer, but had a pretty difficult life. He was actually discovered by Brahms, and if you look at his dates, 1871 to 1942, right? Those are pretty consequential dates in world history. Brahms's dates are 1833 to 1897. So Brahms really ended up at the end of the 19th century. But Zemlinsky really goes directly into some of the most cataclysmic years of the 20th century, right? Now, Zemlinsky, even though his family was Catholic, he grew up Jewish. They converted to Judaism. He wrote choral works with the Psalms multiple critical times in his life when he felt a deep need for emotional release. And the Psalm 13 was written in 1935 when he was kicked out of Germany for being, of course, Jewish. And so in 1933, actually, he was kicked out. And if you know Psalm 13, it is, Lord, why have you forsaken me? But at the very end it says, I will sing your praises and have trust in you. So this is very clearly a direct, personal cry of Zemlinsky. Now, at this period, A Rite of Spring by Stravinsky was in the 1910s. Music was reaching a critical point where Wagner and his acolytes were taking tonal music to the breaking point. You get to the serial music of Schoenberg, of Berg, and whatnot. And Schoenberg and Zemlinsky were actually colleagues. I think they were in the same community orchestra together. And Schoenberg actually took lessons from Zemlinsky. And Schoenberg is the one, as you might know, who invented he was a big proponent of 12-tone roads, which means that there should be no specific pitch that we gravitate for, like C major, right? That's very clearly C major. Schoenberg did exactly the opposite, which is like every single tone is going to be exactly equal, and it's going to sound completely atonal. It's going to have no tonal center. So Zemlinsky, who taught Schoenberg, is between Brahms and Schoenberg. He is right at that point where tonal music starts to break down. He is at a point where the tonalities start to clash in such a way that eventually it doesn't make sense anymore. And at this point, close to the end of his life, this is again, he was kicked out of Germany in 1933. He wrote this work while trying to find work in various places. And he died relatively young, so they say, even though it's actually not that young at all. So this work wasn't even published. It was found later on posthumously, and it was published after that. And sort of the intensity of this is, like we've talked about before, is what, in dire circumstances, let me still trust in you, Lord, in singing and making music. So this is a fantastic work. It has an incredible orchestral introduction, but it's amazing for this incredible orchestral interlude that happens in the middle, where the orchestra goes nuts. And you can see that starting from page 17. Page 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and then you come back in 23, right? It's a very, very long interlude. It falls into 3 parts that falls into the Psalms. Psalm 13. And it ends with this huge triumph in faith. So, I want to play a little bit at the beginning, because this is sort of very much in the style of music at the time, which is almost expressionist, which means that there is deep emotion and outpouring, but the tonalities don't make as much sense as they did in Bach's time. So. So you see, there's a lot of this where, to me, first of all, when I was growing up and I was in elementary school, my dad only listened to Bach, right? And we listened to Switched on Bach, if you remember Switched on Bach, with all the Bach with the synthesizers and everything. So the first time I listened to Brahms, I was a teenager. And Brahms is a few, like 100 years later than Bach. And to my teenage years, I had no clue what was going on. I listened to Brahms and I'm just like, what are these harmonies? They make no sense, right? Because it was as if I was in the Baroque era. Everything was Bach before that. Now, Zelensky, like a lot of the composers of the time, like we talked about, pushed the tonalities. And so what ends up happening is there's an obscurity of the harmonies and these dissonances. So when you have basic chords, like a D minor chord, suddenly they come out with such force and power. I want to play at the very beginning. It takes up until bar 12 to have what I consider to be a normal chord. So at the very beginning. Right? That's not a normal chord, right? You think it's going to be D minor because there's one B flat, and we're told in music theory that one flat can be F major or D minor. This clearly starts with a D, so it's D minor. But then you have these A flat. A flat does not exist in D minor. So. That could be D minor, but there's no F minor. There's no F natural. So it's empty. It's completely empty. It's not a chord yet. Oh, that's a chord. Again, it's A flat. And the first D minor chord. Listen to this, how strong it feels. That D minor for the first time in fullness is rearing itself as if it emerges from the depth. So if I start at rehearsal 1, which is bar 11, immediately, you go from D minor, and then you have this C sharp minor, which doesn't exist in D minor. Then we have B flat major, which is the furthest thing, literally, you can get from D minor. That chord, which is D minor, but it has an extra C flat, which doesn't exist in C minor and D minor. E flat minor. E flat is literally 1/2 step away from D minor. You see all these chords that create tension. In classical music, in romantic music, we always think about music that creates tension and then releases it. So from the very beginning of this, all we had is tension, 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 tension. And when we release the tension, we get D minor, which is incredible tragedy. Right? So the same thing, if I start from bar 1, rehearsal 1. You have this sort of, again, very obscure, dark, covered sound. Now, when the chorus first comes in, turn to page 2, right? You have this drum beat on a D in the bass, as well as the singing basses, but the basses. You see the bass? Tom, tom, tom. And the voices start to emerge. The harmonies they don't make sense, right? So what ends up happening is that every voice part has its own syntax. It goes by half steps, by whole steps, and oftentimes fifths. And then the sopranos will join in after the basses. And then the altos will join in, then the tenors will join in. And each of them will have their half steps, whole steps, and fifths. But they might just completely clash with each other at any point. So if I was a bass at the beginning with the sopranos, D, A, and then clash. 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 So every line is its own melody. And then whether it clashes or not with the other voice parts, it doesn't make a difference. Because all that you have in this opening is your own bubble of dissonance. And it clashes or consonants with, it is consonant with other voice parts. And so it becomes really, really ominous. It is also very dissonant. It becomes very strong. Now, before we dive into it, because we're here to sing, not just listen, right? I want you to look at the very end. So, if we look at Did I start there? No. I start at the very, very end. So we're going to look at page 35. So we've been in D minor this entire time, just like Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, right? We go from C minor to C major, and that's signal of triumph. For this piece, we go from D minor, that's not only D minor, but D minor obscured, to the purity of D major. And so on bar 312, tight mouth, we have pure D major. With full strength. You end on D major. Now contrast that to the very beginning. Don't look back at the beginning, you don't need to. But instead of one voice coming in at a time, so not together, this is the unison. With whole steps, not half steps, and the same fifths as before. Not just notes that hint at D minor or major, but a full D major chord. And so, Zemlinsky, again, this is a deeply personal statement. It was not published to perform. It was out of the purity of his personal circumstances and his need to express the feelings that he was going through and his desire to really try to latch on to something that would save his life, literally, his faith. It's an incredibly powerful statement. Now, as of the time, the orchestration for this, Zemlinsky is considered to be one of the best orchestrators out there in classical music. It's just like, Janacek or Ravel or whatnot. The amazing power of the orchestra is fantastic. He was an organist, and so the chorus's function is to portray the music as if we were experiencing the same emotions that he was. And so we are disparate at the beginning, and then over time we come together with unity to sing, to create, faith and community, right? And so it's really sort of apropos of today's time, because again, I was telling Christian and some of the other board members, it's like during the last 18 months or so, it's been really difficult, right? The purpose of BCCO has been to sing together. And when we haven't had that opportunity to really feel and connect with each other, that sort of human non-verbal connections that we depend on were lost. And so when we have these circumstances, when we're desperate to perform, to be able to create music together, to have artistry together, it's really important, not only for the sake of the organization, but for all of us, right? I mean, it's just, that's the whole, connections between people are important to who we are as humans, right? And so when you have a work like this, which is talking about the isolation that Zemlinsky had, being kicked out of his home, out of his country, and the desperation that he feels, and the triumph that he wants to feel, it sort of mirrors a lot of what we've been feeling. It's like we've been feeling isolated, we want to have community, we want to come together. And so I think this is a powerful piece. It is not the easiest of things. It is harmonically different, and it can be quite powerful, and requires us to sing with our fullness of strength. So I want to start approaching this in little ways. But why don't we start at the very ending, since that's the most important part. Mit Vollerkraft, page 35. Ich will den Herrn singen. So, not a text, but the key is that these harmonic progressions don't quite make sense. Sorry. I love playing these harmonies because nowadays that's like, oh, that's not that bad. But during this day, this is like ludicrous harmonies. They just don't make sense. Okay, let's try. So this is the pickup to bar 318. Okay? On da, 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 da. Okay? 1, 2, and. Super loud, but you do have to sing sustained. Do not be a piano. Da 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 da. Do not do da da. Don't try to sing with full power or do it. Just sing with fullness, but sustain through the notes. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Sustain, sustain, and. Now, that sustain is how we gain fullness. Volume has just as much to do with sustain as it has to do with dynamics. So if we diminuendo before we change notes, it weakens the chord that we have. Now, basses. On your notes, singen der Herren. This is bar 326. Remember, this goes for everybody. Remember that slurs are an arbitrary notation for singing based on the syllables. It has nothing to do with having you slur 6 notes and 2 notes. It just happens to be that they want zing on 4 notes, then on 2 notes, then they head. So I want you to put accents on those notes because those are strong. Okay? Let's do the basics. Just bar 326. 326. So listen for a second. Okay. Basics. Basics, 326. 1, 2, 3, 4. remember, even though we have masks on, your vowel should be pure. So don't sing da, 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 but da, da, da. It's a little bit more fuller sound that is created by opening up your, dropping your jaw a little bit more. Okay, here we go. Bass is low. 2, 3, 4. In most classical music, we want what we call the dominant atomic relationship. Right? That is a Beethoven thing. This chord is this. That doesn't seem like it resolves the D major at all. So basses, when you have that last note has a resounding power, okay? Now, what I want to do with all voice parts is 324. 324, where we oscillate between two chords. 324 on page 36. Sopranos all the way up here, okay? And then we go to this chord. Basses get to take us home, right? So, on Da, let's try it. 324. 1, 2, and no! Sopranos, you have a bit of an odd voice leading. Bar 327, if I started 326, let's say, you want to go to this note, but you actually go up to the high note. Both your both notes. Okay? And that should be, again, a very, not bright. Bright sometimes refers to tone, but it should also refer to the way we approach the note. And so that should be a very on top of it, very, not sharp, but make sure that we're not flat, okay? A very clear head tone like, head voice like tone. One more time, 324. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. That we normally have, maybe 1/3 of the chorus that we have. And yet that chord was spectacular. It was voiced correctly, it was balanced, and it had a fullness of sound. The difference between powerful singing, the way to get powerful singing can be through just trying to yell. But it also can be by just balanced, full singing. Yelling, of course, is going to damage your voice. It's not going to be in tune. It's going to be the wrong tone and whatnot. But you can see that that chord that we just sang had fullness, and as a result, had power. So this piece is very much like this. It can be very, very tiring if you just kind of sing with, like rawness. But the goal is to sing with fullness. And by singing with fullness, we can get that sense of power. Okay? That's great. Can we try it because you're doing such a fantastic job? In fact, it's like really, really good. Can we start with the entire line on Da, from the unison to the harmony to the bizarre chord change at the end? pick up to bar 318. Anybody? Oops, sorry. Can you still hear me? Okay, good. I didn't break it yet. Pick up to 318. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Plagal cadence. A plagal cadence is the odd man at the end of hymn. So those last two chords are a plagal cadence. At the very end of this piece, you hear it, but it's modified in the Zemlinsky way. So if I start in bar 3-3-0. This is the fourth of chord. Okay, that's almost jazzy, isn't it? Right? That's literally the progression of that. Okay, now, I have to say that the ending sounds fantastic. That ending sounds absolutely fantastic. The key is that when we talk about like volume with high scores, right? We talk about height and width. And so oftentimes people just want to make something that sounds more powerful by increasing the volume, when you could actually just make it fuller. And that's what we did. It's healthier singing and creates that forte. Now let's go to the other side, the very beginning of the piece. And it's like that dark beginning. Is all tenors and basses to sing the bass line, and then all sopranos and altos to sing the soprano line. Now altos, you're going to cut off at bar after 34. So at 35, you do not sing Wie lang verlust. Okay? So sorry, you don't sing at bar 35, and then you come in on bar 37. Does that make sense? And then tenors, the same thing for you, except it's on bar 37. So on bar 37, you're going to sing that dotted half note, but then you're not going to sing the A natural. You're going to sing the dotted half note B flat, and then you're just going to come in with a breath on bar 38 for hey. So you say, hey. So you basically have the same exact note, but all the parts before that you will sing. Now, I want to try to see if we can sing both parts together. All tenors and basses on the bass line, all sopranos and altos on the soprano line, starting from bar 26. Okay? Let's get it sound like this. And then the lower voice parts will go half step. Okay? Let's just try that right there. Again, like we talked about, your voice part really doesn't match or come together with the other voice part. So I want you to just focus on your part, the half steps, whole steps, and fifths. Okay? Here we go. Bases. Yeah, do would be great. Dooby-doo. Scooby-doo. Bar 27, basses and tenors on the low D, sopranos and altos on the low. It's also low D, but it's not the top, right? 1, 2, 3, do. So I realize you have different patience than I do, because you have a patient between 2 and 3, right? Okay, right, that's great, that's fine. Now, basses, tenors. What I want you to focus on are the half steps, whole steps, thirds. It's not bad, perfectly fine when we're playing the notes, except you know what happens is that the orchestra isn't going to play the notes, right? It'll be hidden in this sort of dark chord that you have to find your notes in. So I want you to focus specifically on what notes are half steps, what notes are whole steps and thirds, and focus not on harmonies, but on intervals. That's how this entire first section goes, for sopranos and altos as well. Let's run through that one more time. Bar 27, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Do. Half step. Fifth. Pitches are really excellent. I want to make sure that we can do that if the chords are happening. I want to hear the sopranos and altos. Fifth. Fifth. Okay? So that fifth is really excellent. Oh, your tone is fantastic. I missed you all. Okay. Sopranos and altos only. Bar 27. Ready? 1, 2. And then only sopranos. Altos, get ready. Altos. Go! Altos. And look, you have the same melody. So again, the matching pitch is really great. You're picking up sort of the colors of the chords, even though we talked specifically that there's not chords like this. It's more vertical, horizontal lines. That's really excellent. So there are a couple places to watch out for, as always, if you're sopranos and altos. Note that on bar 43, 4, 5, 6, 46, on the downbeat, the sopranos and altos are a half step apart. Unison, half step apart. Okay? And then there's one place where they cross. Where is the place where you go? Oh, look, bar 44. So if I start in bar 43 with the altos, sopranos, that's your note. But the altos will go one step above. So note that altos will be higher than the sopranos at the point. Clash. Clash. Can we do one more time, last time, from the very beginning of bar 27, altos and sopranos only. Bar 27, altos and sopranos only. I'll play the bass note first, and then we'll come in with the sopranos and altos only. Ready, and 1. Altos, sopranos. Basses and tenors, here we go. Now, you really start from the depths. Okay, on do, right? Bar 27. 1, 2, 3, 4. Basses, I want you to be very particular about where you have half steps and whole steps. It gets really tricky when we get to 4, rehearsal 4, which is bar 41. 41, where we have half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Those chords are really clashy. And so that's a particular place to watch out for. Also, bar 39, when you have a D flat, flat goes to B flat, which is a third, so minor third. Then you go up a whole step, but then you go up a half step next to a D sharp. A C sharp. So those things are quite difficult. Let's try, before we take a quick break, bar 27. Bar 27. Here we go. All 4 voice bars. Okay? Actually, why not I create the atmosphere starting from bar 16. 16. Okay? Sorry, let me start from rehearsal 2, that's easier. And one, two. And basses, tenors. And 1. Bass and tenors. Altos drop out. Altos. Tenors. Okay. Paul, where are you? No, it's great. I miss Paul. Paul's great. Okay, so you can see it gets more and more complex. I would like to start where my brain can help it, which is bar 49. And what we're going to start is the soprano line, then the alto line, the tenor line, sorry, bass line, and then the tenor line. So bar 49 is going to go 1. Tenors. Okay. So this is bar 49, just to read and stumble through it. Let's see what happens. Sopranos, altos, basses, and then tenors still actually have the A flat too. Okay, then we'll take a break after this, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 sopranos. 1. Nice chord. Let's start from bar 58, 58. Okay, 58. So that is basses, tenors, altos, sopranos. Okay, a little slower. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's not bad. Can we start for 57? Okay, 57. basses, tenors, mountains, sopranos. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Yeah, you hear that? That is the scary diminished chord of all bad guys in black and white films. The train is coming. Okay. So let's take a break now. I was supposed to take a break like 15 minutes ago, but let's take a break now, and then we'll read a little bit more, and then maybe touch up on little Brahms and the Mendelssohn. Okay, great. Welcome back, everybody.
We looked you up and you had other performance.
Yeah, right.
I was in the afternoon.
Yes, 2 o'clock. You went to the
What's up?
Okay, let's start heading back. Let's get back to our seats.
Dean, do you have a translation of what we're singing?
Yeah, I can say it.
I kind of want to know what we're singing about.
Let me pull one up.
Thank you.
Oh, that's a terrible translation.
We got one on our webpage.
You have your one on the webpage? Okay, but actually, just in case, it's better than the New International Version. It's fine.
Yeah, I'll get it for you.
Okay. Oh, that's the same international. Okay. Okay. So the text, which can be found on the website, so if you want to read into it more, is broken up into 3 sections. And again, remember that Zemlinsky was basically forced out of Germany because he was practicing, he was Jewish, and he was forced out in 1933. And unlike, I was just mentioning, unlike some of the more famous composers, he struggled to make a living in general. And so well, this is so sad. So his first love, Alma Schindler, if you know that name, that's because Alma Schindler eventually rejected Zemlinsky for Gustav Mahler because Zemlinsky wasn't famous enough as a composer.
Oh, no.
So, continuing that through his entire life, when he did leave his, home basically in Berlin in 1933, he was really struggling for quite a while. So think of this from his point of view as in connecting to biblical verses. So it says, "How long wilt thou forget me, Lord? How long wilt thou hide thy face from me? How long shall I sorrow in my soul and have anguish in my heart daily? How long shall mine enemy be exalted over me? Look and hear me, O Lord my God. Enlighten mine eyes, lest I fall asleep in death, lest mine enemy boast that he has prevailed against me, and my adversaries rejoice that I withdraw. Yet I hope that you will be merciful. My heart rejoices that you are willing to help. I sing unto the Lord that he is good to me." So you can tell that as a personal circumstance, he is obviously still, found this verse to be very reflective of his emotional being. But the end, I find the end to be, where we're actually just talking about this, not quite like this secured triumph, as in pure, faith and comfort, but it just comes out of like desperation and hope, right? Which is very different than being secure in it. So that last part that we sang with those chords and those chord progressions that don't quite make sense. But it would be much better if it was like, right? It's just not, it's like, it's a little contrived is the word that I would use, right? Again, it's a sort of blind hope rather than secure feeling. Okay, I want to look at page 5 in your score, which is bar 60 or 62 or so. The Landazoic Sorgen Manizera. Now the last part that we just rehearsed ends in this diminished chord that you sang so perfectly. And this one continues in this half diminished chord. So I want to start in bar 62. Let's read it, since these tonalities seem to be not foreign to us. So starting from bar 62. Basses, tenors, altos, sopranos. Ready? And 1. And 1, 2, 3. 2, 3, breath. Yeah, gnarly. Gnarly in the actual sense of the word, instead of the cool slang. Okay, so the fun part to me is the tenors and the altos. Can we start just, sopranos and basses, listen to as I sing along. But sopranos and, altos and tenors, starting from bar 62. Okay, let's try that. Bar 62. Tenors, altos, ready, 3, 4, 1. 1, 2, 3. 2, 3, breath. 2, 3. Great. Now on piano, this sounds a little weird because sometimes I'm playing the same notes, but the notes for the singer, the voice parts, change. And you see on bar 65, if you're an alto, you sing doo, 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 doo. But if you're a tenor, you sing doo, 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 doo. So on the piano, if I play both of them together, those first two notes just sound exactly the same. As in fact, that's literally chopsticks. Wait a second. Okay, sorry. So that voice changing, but the chords staying the same, creates another unease. Because if you imagine your audience, and you hear the same chord, but all of a sudden it shifts where the notes are coming from, that creates a little bit of like, oh, geez, that's a little funny, that's a little weird going on. So if we start bar 64, tenors, altos, and let's try this. Unison, okay? And just that. And I want to do that once with me playing the piano, and then once without me playing the piano, so we can all hear in the room how that shifting chord, even though it's static, is also still moving and shifting. So once with me, tenors and altos, bar 64. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Go on, and good, stop there, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the first bar, 64, and then you sing everything else, okay? Altos and tenors, bar 64, ready? And everybody else listen, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. And done. That's great. That's really great. Now, I think it might be hard, actually, it may be easier for you to hear if you're a bass and soprano. Because there is a voice part that's closer to you than the others. And up here, I hear just like sort of these waves, because you hear the same chord, but it's just like, it shifts where the center is. It's really great. So let's do everybody from bar 62, and then knowing where your voice parts are, see if we can get these chords to line up together and shift at the same time. Okay, bar 62, basses, tenors, altos, sopranos. Ruhig. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Oh my goodness. So, we talk about a thing called rhythmic harmony. That's how many times the harmony changes. So you did a tone, four changes, really, really slow. And then you look at this, right? You have, okay, and then change, okay. And then, okay, that's not bad, it oscillates slowly. Okay, that was a little weird, but now we have this one chord for a while, right? And then we have, okay. And then, oh, here we go. Everything ta-ti-da-da-da. It's this beautiful, beautiful, but very sort of eerie, as if the ground just sort of dissipates as in really solid. So let's take this apart. What I would love to do is do altos and sopranos only, pick up to bar 69. So you have an E flat on the pianissimo. Now that sounds bizarre with piano, but each line is actually a little melody. It's a little weird sopranos. Altos. It's just two little weird melodies that somehow come together. Pick up to bar 69. Ready? 1, 2, 3. That's great. Basses and tenors. Let's try you. Basses and tenors, I'd love to start actually in the beginning of bar 68. The beginning of bar 68. So you have... Now to me, the tenor line is pretty straightforward. We have B natural, C crescendo, chromatic, right? But the bass line sounds ridiculous. If there is a voice part that basically created the instability of the harmony, it's the basses right there. Thanks, basses. Okay. You're welcome. Bar 68. Bar 68, tenors and basses. There you go. Basses, tenors, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's excellent. That's excellent. Let's try. Okay, I know it's been a while, but it does weird me out a little bit that these really weird, complex harmonies, people are just kind of like, yeah, we can sing that. So, great job, everybody, so far. I don't know what it says about us, but it's great. Okay, bar 62. You're just like, yeah, half diminished seventh chords with ninths added to it? Yeah, sure. Okay. Bar 62. Basses, tenors, altos, sopranos. This is an easy chord. This is just a half diminished seventh chord. It's the progression that becomes weird. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. One, two, three. Two, three, breath. That's excellent. That really is really excellent. It's amazingly balanced. The hardest part about more complex chords is to make sure that the voicing is even where it needs to be, and it really comes across nicely there. I want to do a little bit of just run through the beginning before we could kind of look at Mendelssohn and Brahms for a second. Let's start at bar 27. Page 227. Sorry, bar 27. Bar 27. Labels mean something. I was trying to teach Violet about moles, and I said, mole is 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd. And she's like, yeah, that number of what? And I was like, no, that is just a number. It's just a number. She's like, number of what? I'm like, it could be anything. She's like, mole of tables. And she's like, that doesn't make any sense. I was like, okay, here we go. Okay, bar 27. Ready, 1, 2, 3, basses and tenors. Sopranos, altos. And then altos drop out. And altos get ready. Tenors. That's great. That's really, really fantastic. That's a half diminished chord as it is too. That's excellent. And then you notice this next section here. All of a sudden unison. All of a sudden unison. Let's just read that as a final thing. Right? Bar 73. Now, the fun part about this is that not all voice parts have the same contour, have the same shape, but everything is in unison. So sometimes basses go up to the note, while the tenors go down to the note. But regardless, we all sing the same note all the time. Okay? Ready? Bar 73. 1, 2. Yeah, with a nice crescendo. Excellent crescendo, excellent reading. You see this is really interesting because it feels like you're really trying to climb and look upwards, right? Dee, 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 da, 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 da. And what is that note that we're looking on? That note, that's F sharp, which happens to be the third of D major. Except we're nowhere near ready for that chord to be a release. We have, in fact, every single note clashing with it. Right, we have this. It just doesn't work. Right, we have this, seriously, we have this chord. That's not the D major that we want. Okay, great. And the last couple, I did that a little longer than I wanted to. Let's do, I want to hear the Brahms Schicksalslied. The very beginning, just to see where we're at with this. Starting from altos. Okay, let's start from bar 25. End. And everybody. and tenors and that was beautiful. It's been a while, but that actually sounds. Sorry. It sounds absolutely gorgeous. You know what I love most about it is that there's a sense of legato to it, which means we're sustaining through the lines, which means the intonation is there, but more importantly, that the voice parts are matched. And that means we're singing together again. That we're singing together and you're used to the space, even though we've had a long winter break, right? And a few weeks of winter break. So it's really great. Fantastic rehearsal. I'm so excited for this semester. And whatever happens, but regardless, you know, the sort of sense of ensemble again is back together. And I think that's something that we should all be really excited about. So, okay. Woo! Welcome back, everybody. I'll see you next time.
Thanks, and we're always grateful for volunteers who want to either help close windows or stack any of the maroon chairs against the back wall by the windows. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you in 2 weeks and 1 week on Zoom.
Good. We can still see each other.